All right, this is kind of an unorthodox setup, but I wanted to bring you the Trickstar Runick Deck Profile. I've been working on this deck for a little bit. Got some glimpses here and there. I believe there's one video on YouTube. From there, I just kind of made some edits and stuff that makes sense for how the deck works, at least in this day and age. I believe that video is a couple months old. So I wanted to drop to you guys some information about what could be coming down the pipeline in terms of competitive play. The deck is pretty competitive. I played against Danger Tier, I played against Sprite, able to get wins. If I'm not 2-1ing, I'm just solid 2-0ing those decks. This deck right here is pretty interesting, so I'm gonna go ahead and start off with the with 3 Candina. So you know what it does. It searches pretty much all of your other Trickstar cards. So 3 Candina and 1 Lycoris. Lycoris is there just to kind of facilitate extra spice. Essentially, if you get hit by an effect veiler while you have Lycoris in hand, you can swap it out real fast. Also, Lycoris burns your opponent for drawing cards. Your Candina will burn your opponents for activating spells. So they work really well in tandem together. This is kind of trash on its own if you don't have anything for it, but a lot of times that's why we're only playing 1, and we also play 2 of the light stage. So when they brought this back to 2, I kind of thought that they were asking for trouble, just because it searches everything, locks back row. So a lot of times if you start off with this card in your hand, you can keep your opponent from, especially if you're going second, you can keep your opponent from doing certain things, or you can bait out cards that would otherwise negate your Runick cards. You would rather have them negate this than negate any of your Runick stuff. And as you can see was peaking, you got 3 Reincarnation. 3 Reincarnation, this will help you keep yourself alive against your opponents for the most part. It'll help you keep yourself alive. Not only that, is that this will help just rip through your opponent's hand. I've done double and triple Reincarnation on an opponent, especially in addition to my Runick cards. So in like 1.5 turns, so basically if I was going first and I set obviously 3 Reincarnation, during standby after draw phase, you flip 3 of these things and your opponent's deck is pretty much done. But this will also save just in case you've got Candina in the grave or Lycoris in the grave and you banish it, special it back in defense to save your ass. So a lot of times that'll help. Double Majesty's Fiend. This really, 3 of these seemed really clunky. I would always draw into them. And a lot of times I don't want to see monsters in here. I want to see cards that lead to different things, lead to not necessarily combo lines, but just kind of, I want more searchers than anything. If you're sitting with this card and Reincarnation in your hand and no other cards to search, it kind of sucks. So I really don't like playing those kind of cards. I don't like playing too many of these. I like 2. I think it's really good. I think once you've done all this craziness here, and when you lead to the Majesty's Fiend, or you can start off with this, let your opponent kind of break it, then you can start on this line. It's very, very good because your opponent will waste a lot of resources in order to try to out this card. This hurts a lot of decks. So that's pretty much it for like Trickstar and all the other kind of engines that we're using. And then we're going to get to the Runick cards. So we're using 3 Fountain. And yes, they're CR. So 3 Fountain, 3 Tip. You guys know pretty much what these do. Field Spell, Searcher. All the Runick cards will special summon from the extra deck to the extra monster zone, a fusion Runick monster. So they're pretty legit. So I'm running 3 Droplet. The reason why for 3 Droplet, I see a lot of people play this at 2 or at 1, but this is the only card that will allow you to activate without your opponent having to have done something, or without your opponent having something on the field. So this is great turn one. Like, this is great turn one mill. Then you've got Runick Flashing Fire, destroys a special summon monster. Again, you know, you're not going to be using this on turn one. If you pull anything other than Droplet, you're going to be using it, especially on turn one, you're going to be using it to special summon cards, special summon monsters from your extra deck, and then you're going to be pitching other cards to search. Runick Destruction destroys a spell or trap. I think that's a really good card to have, especially like going turn two. These are really, really good to kind of just blow up spell and trap and back row, as well as the fact if your opponent activates something and you just need extra mill, you can chain this to the activation of the card, of a spell or trap that they're activating, and just destroy it. Even though it doesn't negate the effect, you can still mill. You can still mill your opponent for those. Then you've got 3 Freezing Curses. This is really good going second. This is really good going second. You can use this as essentially an effect veiler or an imperm. I like using it. It's pretty good. And then we've got 2 of the other ones. So we've got 2 Smithing. It's decent. Smithing's okay. You don't want to see too many of it because it's heavily reliant upon what your opponent has on the field. Then you've got 2 Runick Dispelling. Dispelling's really good with Golden Droplet. You can activate Dispelling with Droplet. You can activate Dispelling with Reincarnation. That also really helps out. That combo line works very well. And you can also activate Dispelling with a few other cards I'll show you that I have here. 2 Runick Slumber and 1 Allure. These are, sorry about the glare here, yeah, but Runick Allure, you can see that. So Slumber is essentially protection from destruction by battle, I believe. By battle or by card effect. So this is really good when you use it on your Majesty's Fiend. They really, really have to work those resources in order to try to get rid of this Majesty's Fiend. And, you know, all the while you're milling them out. You put this on board, you can't even attack with it. You just let them, you just sit on it and you just activate all of these and you just keep milling your opponent out, as well as use your Trickstar engine. Of course, you don't have to. Of course, you're not going to be able to use Candina or anything to search, but you are going to be able to keep recycling through these, and then eventually you'll draw into Reincarnation. You'll draw into other types of engines that'll really help you out. So those are like little tiny details that I like for this deck. So that's pretty much all for the Runick stuff. This is what I think is the spiciest part. You want to make sure that you're playing a lot, like almost all of these cards. The reason why is you want to be able to cycle through them. That's the whole point of this is I've seen people run no allure and like 1 and 2 of each, and that's fine if you're playing that in a hybrid build, sort of similar to this one. And I've seen Runick Sprite, and they'll run a much smaller Runick package. It depends on your play style. That's all I have to say. But these are sort of the cards that I think that really hone the deck in on that deck out element. I run a card destruction. I mean, obviously that's very, very, very self-explanatory as to what it does. If you play card destruction, then you've got 3 Reincarnation plus Runick cards in your hand. You're milling off 20 plus cards in a turn, more than half your opponent's deck in a turn. So it's very hard for your opponent to recover from card destruction, Reincarnation, and various different Runick cards where they're just banishing and destroying stuff. 2 is Upstart Goblin. Self-explanatory. The deck is, I believe, 41 cards, so it's now 40 cards running this, or I could just take it out. It's fine, but I like running the Upstart. Next is One Day of Peace. Perfect card, especially if you're going on any turn, really. It helps take a card out of your opponent's deck, as well as keep your opponent from doing anything lethal to you the next turn. Dark World Dealings, also a really good card. Most likely can help out your opponent, but most likely won't. So I like using this as well. And for my own spices, I like using Card of Demise. Card of Demise really helps me get rid of stuff that that might be lingering in my hand, like Runick cards that I can't activate until next turn. If I have those sitting in my hand and I want them in the grave, but I can't activate them, Card of Demise will help me get rid of that, some of that stuff. I know you guys are probably thinking to yourself, well, you could just set them. There's also liabilities that you'll have with this deck, and with that hard once per turn clause with your Runick cards, is that sometimes they'll clog in your hand. A lot of times if you're activating Card of Demise or you draw into those, it'll allow you a chance to facilitate discarding those at the end of your turn and getting more in the grave. Or when you're drawing into these, you can draw, or when you're using it for its draw effect, you can draw into your Trickstar engine. You can draw into a lot of different things. So I really do like these set of cards here, because when you see them, you can always play them. So there's never a time where you can't play these cards. So I really do like this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and answer the question, why am I not running Prosperity or anything like that? The reason why I'm not running Prosperity is definitely because Prosperity does not allow me to draw. So if I activate Prosperity in my turn, then I cannot activate Runick Fountain in that same turn. All right, so that's the reason for my not running of any of those draw type cards like Prosperity and whichever other pot cards there are. So for the extra deck, I'm running 2 Hugin. This card is great. I mean, this literally searches your field spell. It helps your opponent hone in on something to imperm, even though we don't really care about that, because most of the time, if you're running 3 of the field spell, you probably already have one in your hand by the time you use this, and you just kind of want to, you're doing imperm bait or veiler bait or anything else. So it's really a good card. I really like it. We've got 2 Munin. Munin is really effective in terms of being able to stall your opponent out. He's got kind of a big ass. And the thing about having 2000 defense and then being able to search upon summon a continuous runic spell, as well as give you 1000 every end phase, is that your opponent is really going to look at this card and kind of hate the fact that it's going to keep giving you stuff. It's giving you things, like it's giving you health, life points, when their goal in the game is to reduce your life points to 0. Your goal is just to reduce their deck points or their deck to 0. So this is something that counteracts their goal. So they really like to target this for attacks and try and get it off the field as soon as possible. 2 Gary. These I guess it's okay if you're going to, if you get something in the grave, like if you've got a runic fountain in the grave, or if you've got something that you need to grab out of the grave, summoning a Gary would really help. And then also it helps protect. It kind of blocks 2 attacks. So if your opponent destroys Gary while Gary's in defense mode or whatever, because you're going to bring this out in defense mode, you're not going to bring this out in attack. But if it's destroyed, then of course by battle, and it's sent to the graveyard, then it's popping another monster on the field. So it's actually kind of like a Raikou. It can pop 1 card on the field, but really it's a great card to have. So for the rank 4s that you're going to use to help lock down your opponent, like let's say if they have a strategy that's really hurting you, that's based upon graveyarders, you're going to use a Dweller. Also, if you've got 2 Candina, you can use them, you can put them together to make a Dugarist, a Timeless, and this will help you like pull out extra cards from your deck. You can draw 2. So that is like for the extra deck that you'll use. This is for the extra deck that you will use to help battle against your opponent. The next are Ultimate Slayer targets. So for the first Ultimate Slayer target, I like Trouble Sunny. So of course, as you know, you're gonna have to run the brick. So I just side in the brick. This really helps for a spin of a card on the field that really, of course that, this card is very strong. Getting rid of 2 of anything for 1 is super good, in my opinion. This Tri-Brigade Farragut. Farragut is very good. I mean, I don't really know how else to say. It says draw one card on it. I think that's really good. So we'll stick with that. Wind Pegasus is also awesome. This will help you get around a lot of weird things. Your opponent will try to, like, let's say if they destroy something of yours, they'll forget this is in the grave. You banish it, and all of a sudden you're shuffling one card on the field back into their deck. They almost always forget when Pegasus has that effect, so they'll always 100% run into it. The next card I play, because this is really spicy. I thought about it, and I was looking at a lot of different cards that I banish, and that is going to be Deep Sea Prima Donna. This, when it's sent to the graveyard, it shuffles one banished card back into the deck. All right, so how is that important, right? How is that important? Well, you have a lot of cards that will ultimately get banished themselves at some point, namely Reincarnation. So a lot of times you can facilitate weird little combo loops with this. Like you can activate Reincarnation, right? It goes to grave, banish it, special summon, use Ultimate Slayer, send this, put this back in the grave, and then recycle another, and if you've got like Lycoris in hand, bounce back Candina, summon it again next turn, cycle out another Reincarnation. A lot of times that does work. I do like that kind of strategy. It does make sense to do stuff like that, in my opinion. If you want to really, that's like if you're grind game, right? This is game 2. So to me, it just makes it to where your grind game is a little bit stronger for the Trickstar engine. It may not necessarily hinder your opponent from doing anything, but I do think that this is great for you. So third is Garura, the wings of whatever it is. Garura just says draw one card. So we like drawing cards. I'm going to leave it at that. And then I run 2 Elder Entity Intis. So these are obviously going to pop cards on the field for you. So these are going to get rid of your problem cards, your floodgates, your anti-spells, your whatever else might happen. That's what these are going to help you do. They're going to help you get rid of that garbage. All right, and then on to the side deck. So the side deck, I really had a lot of thought put into it. I do plan on changing some of this up. And the reason why I want to change some of this up is because there's some trap cards that I'm really, that I'm aware of that are very strong. That are very strong for this deck against your opponent. Now, I don't know if they'll be main decked or side, but I do want to at least side them in and try them out. For starters, 2 Lava Golem. So Lava Golem is special because Lava Golem can get rid of 2 cards on the field. The only reason I don't like this card is because now we give them a huge body. And the whole goal of this deck is to protect yourself from getting your life points down to 0, right? And arguably that's for any deck. However, it's very hard for this deck to get over big monsters such as this. This will burn your opponent every, in phase or standby phase or whatever the case may be. But what I don't like is giving your opponent this. I don't like it. So, I thought about some other reasonable ones. I thought kaijus, the majority of them were too big. So I came to the conclusion that Santa Claus is actually very good. Santa Claus will help you get over cards and also give your opponent, they'll make them draw a card, at the end phase. Now your opponent is going to look at it and be like, shoot, great, perfect. I love drawing cards. Everybody loves drawing cards until, you have to draw them until you have no more cards in your deck and you have to draw, and then it's game. So this helps facilitate just eating more cards out of the deck. 2 more here. It's going to be Eater of Millions. This card is special. All right. I really do like this card a lot. And because not only is it a special summon, it also is a card that helps you get rid of stuff. It'll help you banish and get rid of things that are in your way. Like if somebody's got if someone's got, what is that one card? It's it's that one spell canceller. If they got spell canceller on the field, then obviously, you're going to be in a world of hurt if you don't have something to out it, right? So a lot of times that's what Majesty's Fiend is for, is to help get over those types of those cards and kind of stop that. But let's say spell canceler's on the field first and you still haven't set up, that's a first turn play, then you're kind of screwed unless you have any of these cards here. And a lot of times, arguably, these all can do roughly the same thing, except this one will eat your normal summon. This will eat a special summon, and it'll also take an opponent's monster, a problem monster, off the field. This is a requirement that your opponent has to have too. Then, of course, we run the brick, right? So we have to run the brick for Trouble Sunny. So on to the spells. What I like to run here is 3 Ultimate Slayer. This is a phenomenal card, I think. I think that this card will really help the deck. I do want to main it, but then I don't want to main more spells. So I think I kind of like it how it is, as it is right now. Second is I've got two Triangle Ecstasy Sparks. This card here should help you get past a lot of weird traps. So if you are playing against things that you're afraid of, like let's say you're afraid of a conch, or you're afraid of a lot of weird things, normally playing this first will help you just kind of clear the board. Not clear it, but just kind of, hey, no traps. So if you're going to activate something, activate it now. And this will kind of bait out those traps that you're afraid of. So a lot of times Sanguine, this will make your opponent force activate whatever they need. Or whatever, not whatever they need, but just force activate whatever they have that they want to use. So it forces them into suboptimal plays. And then lastly, I've got 3 Evenly Matched. I think that this is great going second, especially when your opponent knows, like, oh, wow, well, they're playing Runick, so I'm going to just side in a lot of, hate for the deck. So, we don't really care about the battle phase. That's not really we can play in main phase 2. We can play in main phase 1. We could play in the standby phase. We could play in the end phase even, but, we don't really care about what phase we're in when we're playing this type of deck, unless we plan on doing a summon. But for the most part, Evenly Matched is a great card coming in second. So evenly, a lot of times I'll side in evenly in Ultimate Slayer. If I know that their deck is mainly monster heavy, so they're bringing out more monsters, and their monsters usually aren't a problem. Like for me, this is really good bait against, this is really good bait against other decks that require lots of monsters out on the field. So this will definitely either force a negate, or they'll be forced to eat in Evenly Matched, which only helps you out. So as that is the side deck. So you've seen pretty much everything. That's the side, the extra, and the main. So I appreciate you watching this. I really do. I appreciate you watching the deck profile. Go try it out for yourself. I think the deck is very strong. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say. YGO Podcast is what it is. Please, we're still on Facebook. It's not as active as it once was. I plan on activating a lot of different things about the channel. So just stay tuned. I'll have some more stuff planned out for the future. I have a lot of deck profiles coming. I'm doing a lot more competitive play. So please keep in mind that, I'll bring out much more deck profiles, a lot less card discussions at length. Yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Peace.